You know that scene in Game of Thrones when Robert is discussing war stories and he's like, Jaime Lannister, come in here. We're discussing war stories or whatever. That's me whenever I remember that I did a mega campaign like 2 years ago. It was a simple campaign. I was Ireland for a little bit. I was Yazidi Island, but this did get very boring very fast. I mean, there's not a lot you could do as Ireland in a multiplayer game when the rest of the world is duking it out and I'm just on an island. There is a Germanic horde invading Europe and I was just sitting there, chilling. Because like in all multiplayer games, Christendom just falls apart because no one really likes to play Catholics in CK2. You know how it is, most multiplayer lobbies are just nomads and Muslims duking it out. I'm a veteran, I've done a lot of hours in multiplayer CK2 and I know the metas at this point. It's either you're nomad or you're Muslim. I was just kind of chilling as the most serene Islamic Republic of Ire. I really only had conflicts with the British player, but after he was defeated, not a lot really happened for me. So I decided I would play as some random Greek dude, Tom Cruise. I don't know if you ever heard of this guy, but yeah, this is where he was hanging out. I really only switched because I got kind of bored playing on an island all by myself. Like, I'm not doing that for the whole game, really. While I was, working my way through the Byzantines, the Danish Republic, they attacked and they killed the Germans. Germania had fallen. For the first couple streams, the Danish were the enemies of the whole lobby. It did really seem that the world was being split between the Danish, the Kennedy Caliphate, and the Chungus Caliphate, with really my only ally being the People's Republic of Bulgaria. Yeah, that was a country. I'm pretty sure they were led by Mao Zedong. Yeah, that was just what they were doing. That was their LARP. This was all while in the background there was a horde of Ethiopians called Detroit, the Detroit Khanate. I reformed the faith, and we made them, sacrifice people because it was funny. All right, I did it because it was funny, and I had some proxy wars with the Kennedys where I kidnapped all his family and sacrificed them to the gods. It's whatever, man. Like, shit happens in CK2. It was all to become the Purple Texantine Empire. A very weird purple, by the way. The Danish had renamed themselves the Germania with a J, and they got really big. And I was thinking to myself, man, this lobby is gonna die if I don't fight them. And so I set out to go and fight them. With the backing of the Muslims, they sent me money for my suicide mission. They would later join the war, but in the beginning hours of the war, it was a staring contest between the Texantine and the Germanians. I was indeed outnumbered on my front, but I saw one of his armies alone, and I went for it. I had to attack now or never. This was a big gamble on my part, because if I lost this, I would be humiliated. I would be desecrated, and I wanted to carry my weight in this war. That was like the big thing. I wanted to show that I was capable of winning wars by myself if needed to. This battle in Zardar would decide the fate of Europe, because we captured their, not their king, but their doge, I guess, and that was cool. He was called the Evil, by the way, just to emphasize how evil they were. And I peaced out with them, and I got Austria, which was pretty cool. But my glory was stolen because the Detroit Khanate, they came in and they conquered the whole country, which destabilized the whole realm. The leader of the Danish became a religious title because he was the religious head, so he was just kind of stuck as a religious title. And he was on death's door, because if he died, it was game over for him, apparently. He was forced to live out his days in Iceland with the Bloodhound Gang raiders, until his country revolted and his countrymen put him back in power. He was like Napoleon. He was restored to Denmark, and I kept bullying people who kept inheriting the Germanic throne. Sorry, I needed some land. I had to expand.
In the coming peace after the Great War, the Texantine Empire would solidify its borders with many new player vassals to keep the peace. And there is an independent New Hungary led by His Majesty Obama, in the middle, a landlocked. The Hellenic Pope would call for a crusade for Trebizond, which led me to get BTFO'd. My country was in a bad spot since I had no real allies and everyone was just kind of like trolling me. Even Iceland was trolling me and they trolled me hard. Maybe I should have just stayed in Ireland. I mean, I was that built for these streets here. Another holy war would be declared and fought to a standstill. The cycles of war looked like they would never end. There would just be continuous war. It seemed our two faiths could never live in peace. The Ethiopians in this time migrated to England from India, the Indians having all turned Ethiopian by this time, though the Ethiopians did convert to Hellenic, so they fit in with their conquered subjects to an extent. The Chungus Caliphate did attack their sister caliphate. This was a mad world to say the least. After fighting so many pointless death wars, the Pope would finally call for a crusade that would push the Chungus and Texantine empires to the brink of collapse. My empire was on fire trying to win this cancerous war. So much AIDS fighting this, and when it was finally done, it wasn't even worth it, because a guy in the middle of the country called Not Egypt revolted and took most of the good stuff. In the following wars, I managed to form Byzantium, with the end goal of making Rome. Every warlord has to try to become Rome, that's just how it is. Also, Detroit dual monarchy moment. The New World Order, the Crips Empire, and the renamed Byzantine Empire to the Bloods Empire. Funny enough, there were two Crips, with one of them being the Mongols. This game is so evil because when I was trying to form the Roman Empire, I actually got the Grim Reaper event. Actually evil game. The Occitans would fight off its Ethiopian rulers, become a sovereign nation once more. New countries were forming all the time. Through hard work and dedication, another new country would form, thanks to Basilius Pitbull III, for he would finally restore the Roman Empire. All the wars fought were no longer fought in vain, for the empire had been restored. The Pitbull Empire was mighty, but an empire is only as strong as the people are loyal. Pitbull III was no doubt glorious, but he was too trusting of his friends. One of his smaller player vassals in Italy would assassinate him in an explosion. The rogue Italian king had to be punished. His men would be slaughtered and he'd be thrown in jail. My next character would also be assassinated. It just really was a cruel world of Crusader kings. I decided to forgive the Italian king for my murder, and I invaded Arabia and landed him there. Since I was already there in the east, I just decided to start map painting to pass the time. I would then soyjack for my old enemies. The Danes had made an alliance with the Chinese to shatter my realm. I called for my vassals to gather with me in Anatolia, and we headed out to the east, the Austrians being the most loyal of my vassals. Obama of Hungary, played by the notorious Obama 5, just pretended to be AFK. That's why to this day, I call him Judas 5. Judas 5, where are my legions? The final betrayal was that my eastern vassal decided not to send his men into the battle. Rome was lost, and the vultures came for me. I was left with 5 provinces in the end. I couldn't just sit there in defeat. Instead, I jumped to my feet and declared an invasion on the Danish, for they did this to me. I assembled a host and some allies and set forth towards Flanders. The last of the Texantines and the hordes of Detroit came to fight the Danes in Flanders. The Texantines being led by Germa 985. We would meet the Danish Caliph in Breda and fight one of the most sweatiest battles I've ever seen in Ck2. I gambled so much on this war and it looked like I was going to lose that battle, but gods be good, we managed to find victory that day, altering history forever. The goal now was to peace out for as much as I could and create a new homeland with the help of Ethiopia. After some negotiating, we finally settled on the borders of my new state. And yeah, I was a tributary, but I had to do what I had to do, okay? It's a rough world out there. But I had a new LARP, for I was Rex Germa 985, the sword of Allah of Frisia. Immediately, I started reorganizing my realm. Side note, we need a 3-state solution for Iceland. Like, this is not okay. Whilst I had won the war, I needed protection, so when the Emperor of Detroit offered vassalization to me, I took it. This land, that the Texantines now call home, was actually hell on earth. Viking raiders would come and raid and plunder our new cities, making it hard to create civilization in these harsh lands. I would continue this cycle of violence by invading my neighbors. Detroit would do the same thing, expanding its borders with the goal of forming the Third Rome. Germa would get his chance to avenge the loss of the original empire at the hands of the Chinese, for the Chinese would be called in again, most likely by the Danes, to destroy Rome. Unfortunately for the Danes, the Chinese got confused on how to invade the capital, Detroit, so they just bugged out. Now Detroit was free to expand to its true borders. I would declare war on the Danish, but even though I was super outnumbered, he accepted the demands, which was weird because he could have easily crushed me, I think. I decided that maybe
he wasn't so bad after all. Detroit did become Rome, the Detroit Empire. Now we were truly in the Detroit Age. For me, it would be an age of war. There would be a big breakaway revolt that the Occitan would take advantage of. Apparently the Danish stole their land that I'm living in from the Occitan a while ago, and they were dead set on having it back. The Danish, however, would rather I have it than their old enemies, so they supported me in my grueling forever war. I would lose a lot, but through pure annoyance, I would win back my new homeland. Now was the real time of peace. The Occitans had been annoyed to death, and the Danish befriended, and the Detroit Imperium prospering. I wish this could have lasted forever, though the other vassals wanted the empire to crumble, and I joined with them not to get full siege down. Thus, the Third Rome was gone. Ck2 was coming to an end, so I just started map painting to make countries for EE4. When we got to EE4, we did some restructuring to better balance the game for new players joining in. Of course, the first thing I did in EE4 was I began to try to reconquest my old borders back and getting a nice vassal. We did a little more conquest. The Polish also tried to do a little conquesting. They were attacking Hungary with the support of the Danish. This war would have been a quick one if a real Italian-American did not intervene. Tony Napoleon, leading the Jersey crew, came to the Hungarian aid and defeated the invaders of Hungary, making him a Hungarian hero. The Danish got beat up pretty bad, but I was able to stop their unrest. By this time, I got a new flag, and I could officially now call myself the Baltimorum Imperium. The Persians and their lobotomite rule have become this world's China. They were a heavenly kingdom. The Dutch colonial initiative was going quite swimmingly. I was in my lane, colonizing in peace. Though I was not alone in the New World. Yeah, they're the natives, but something sus was afoot. Whilst I was beginning my conquest of Central America, Napoleon was defending from an Occitan invasion. From what I remember, Napoleon was winning until he was betrayed by the great Judas V of Hungary for no reason. He gained nothing from it. It's just in his nature to betray his allies. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. At least I got my New World colony going. Epico. Colonial empires would be forged and colonial wars would be fought again and again, while Europe was slowly consolidated. I was trolled a few times, but that's okay. It was a learning experience for everyone. As we consolidated, there was tension growing in the air. I could feel it. There was a war coming. I don't know when, and I don't know who would be fighting. There was a Mediterranean triumvirate. There was a new player in Italy replacing the previous Napoleon. He got sent to Asia, and he was allied to Egypt and Vasconia. Vasconia had invaded Occitan and the Normans, breaking the uneasy peace we had between all of our nations. I was rapidly cloning Weird Al Yankovic to build my Grand Army of the Republic. The first Baltimore Republic was one of the weaker powers in the game, but I did have a lot of good colonies, meaning I was a prime target. I was gaining colonies still and killing off my friendly neighbors. They were dead at this point, so I just started taking land from them. It was better me to have some than none. The gold of Mexico was being harvested to build the most annoying fort network to defend the homeland. It would never last, but it would make invading the Republic very annoying. The Austrians, having allied themselves to the Triumvirate, attacked Hungary, which called Persia to defend them. Egypt then decked on Persia, which brought in the Ethiopian Myrmidons, who owned all of India. This made Italy join the war, seeing an opportunity. Denmark declared war on Italy, and I was allied to Denmark, which brought me in. And when I joined the war, Andalusia declared war on me, causing the Great War. Denmark and I's goal was to hold the line up north and wait for reinforcements. Our allies were on the way, but they had to get through Egypt's forces to relieve us. Since our northern alliance was isolated and the weaker of the allied forces, we were the main focus of the Triumvirate. The war in the north would be one of desperation. We were fighting a losing battle. Eventually, the Egyptians started sending troops to our front, and it was quite grim. We got pushed back to my territory when my forts came into play. This was hell on earth. My lands were burned by me and the enemy, becoming a hellish landscape. Temporarily, we would drive them back, but we were living on borrowed time. They would return, and we feared we could not drive them back again. Hastily, we unsieged everything before they returned to start the cycle over again. The next attack would be the worst of the war. Now all three of them were set on attacking me, and all I could really do now was delay the inevitable. I'm not even good at this game, and all I could do was watch. Every attempt to throw the invaders back was useless, but necessary. The war in the east I was assured was going well, and I just needed to hold out basically. The homeland would needed to be sacrificed if we were to win. When it looked like all was done, I was sent a military access request from the Myrmidons, and like Goku arriving to fight the Saiyans, they came and liberated my lands. I started sending troops to help the liberation. Could the war be won? Victory had forced our enemies to flee from my lands, with us on pursuit. The Myrmidons sent me hugs and kisses. We could actually be saved after all. Funnily enough, Hungary would join against us, but it was not Judas 5 this time. He had a sub, though let's be real, it wouldn't be out of character for him. In the worst moment, the Myrmidons got black flagged since their war ended, and it was at the worst time, so another bleak moment for me. I had to thug this brutal war out for longer, it seemed. Now began the defense of Denmark. The Austrians would send a formal declaration of war to the Danish, which I joined, I was forced to, and we were at war at all fronts now. Whilst we were fighting in the north, the Persian and Myrmidon counterattack in the south began, supported by our combined navy. Egypt by this point had their whole country sieged too. The war looked like it was coming to an end. The Austrians white peace seeing the writing on the wall, and I was stab peace out of the war. But we had a plan scheming. All my forts were unsieged with enemy troops still walking about in them, unaware that I was about to truce break, trapping them inside a cage of forts with no retreat path. With nowhere to retreat, they were killed one by one. I destroyed my country for this, but the war did look to be in my favor for once. And after it all, I still think this is probably the most fun war I fought in a Paradox game to this day. Thank you to everyone who fought in it, y'all guys are awesome. We finally had peace in our time, and a nation to rebuild. The war didn't change the map much because we had too much dev to take stuff. We were playing Ck2 conversion to E4 Leviathan, so we just had insane dev. The Myrmidons had become the strongest nation in the game at this point and decided it'd be funny to declare war on the world. As a bit, we ended the E4 game by fighting them at a loss all the way into Vic2. Vic2 would just be us continuing this great meme war until unfortunately the lobby would die. By 1936, there was just Italy, Austria, Baltimore, and the lobotomites. Everyone else had just gotten bored, like I said. I met a lot of cool people starting this campaign. It was pretty fun. I enjoyed it all, and I just want to thank everyone who played in it. And I also want to thank everyone watching who got this far. Bless up, everyone. And remember to keep LARPing.